Congress has been looking the other way. Christine Romans reports.
Plans for an integrated North American community by 2010, moving ahead swiftly and under the radar. Robert Pastor is an author of the Council on Foreign Relations document seen as the project's roadmap.
We need to deepen economic integration by moving towards a customs union with a common external tariff. I think we need to enhance our security by beefing up both our borders and beefing up a continental boundary.
But critics fear an attack on American sovereignty, a super NAFTA, with borders erased between three very different countries with no public oversight. Texas Congressman Ron Paul is a rare voice of concern on Capitol Hill.
We're not supposed to give this to the executive branch devising quasi-type of treaties that the Congress seems to not have any control of, and then it turns out to be managed trade for big corporations and not to benefit to our workers and to our people.
The House International Relations Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee have not held hearings on this, and a high-level conference this month in Banff was closed to the press. Critics raise concerns about secrecy, but the plan has a website, spp.gov, highlighting myths and facts. Without explaining how, it says the Canadian-Mexican-U.S. partnership does not attempt to modify our sovereignty or currency, nor undermines the U.S. Constitution, but would create jobs by reducing transaction costs and unnecessary burdens for U.S. companies. Robert Pastor says a more open public discussion would quiet what he calls conspiracy theorists.
A North American Union is impossible. None of the three governments or countries are interested in unifying into one country.
He says the goal is more cooperation. But that doesn't quiet the concerns about this cooperation or what it's going to look like. Just yesterday, Congressman Virgil Goode of Virginia introduced a resolution opposing a NAFTA superhighway and various elements of a North American Union, as the critics call it. And Robert Pastor, he says you're one of those critics. You're part of a conspiracy theory that it just is not founded.
That I'm a conspiracy theorist. That's very flattering on the part of Mr. Pastor. What he is an out-of-control elitist who hasn't been elected or in any way nominated by this government to do a darn thing that he's doing. And the fact that this administration and some of this country's largest corporations are pushing ahead with this, with some of Canada's leading elites and Mexico's, there is not a single thing in this that even remotely has legitimacy. And the fact that this Congress, thank goodness that Virgil Goode stepped up here, the fact that this Congress is not demanding an investigation into this right now is sickening. This is elitism run rampant, and it's just, to me, it's just inexplicable why it's being tolerated. Pastor, what's his qualification?
He's studied North America and its institutions for 30 years.
Ah, good. And this is his conclusion after all that study at the Council of Foreign Relations. Thank you very much, Christine.
Mr. Prime Minister, I was delighted by your great accolade of Tony Blair for what he has done for Ireland. My question is, why has he been so successful there, according to your view, and been such a, shall we say, great failure in respect to the European Union? And may I also say, not as much the hero of this republic today as he was on September 11th.
Well, I just, from our perspective, Tony Blair, you will not get me to say anything negative about Tony Blair. Perhaps there's a section of the British people don't fully see all his merits, but from where I sit, I think he's a wonderful person. He's done a great job in Northern Ireland. He's given us enormous time, huge commitment. And I cooperate with him on European matters as well, and increasingly my ally in fighting various issues, though not always. We have a few issues that would divide us. We're arguing a bit at the moment about the US European Open Skies Agreement and issues like that. But on a lot on the European Constitution, I wouldn't necessarily share the views. But I have to say, the reason
in the Constitution after the two constitutional defeats. What is your sense of whether things get back on track, and if so, how? What does one do that?
Well, under the German presidency at the moment, we're coming because they're one of the two, France and Netherlands, that voted no. But, you know, there's 450 million people in the European Union today. 18, 19 countries have voted for the Constitution. There's another 3 or 4, like ourselves, as soon as the position is clear, are prepared to recommend acceptance, and that's across the political divide. It's not most of the mainstream parties in most of the other countries are in favour. There is a difficulty also in the UK. I mean, they don't really agree with the Constitution. So there's a difficulty around 2 or 3 countries, and in June we have to come to a decision. What are we going to do with the Constitution? We're working European Union at the moment that was formulated around maybe 9 or 10 countries. There's 27, and it'll be soon probably 30. So we have to have a constitution or a set of rules or a set of values, whatever you call it. I don't get hung up in the Constitution name, but we agreed originally it would be called the Constitution, to move it forward, to have rules that we can move Europe forward. And I think if it's not this Constitution exactly as it is, which I support, or a variation of it, we need to have this, and we need to have it fairly quickly. So, to answer your question, I think 2008, the other side of the French elections, we'll come back to this again. Probably a slimmed down version of the Constitution, but hopefully with not too much change in the substance of what we agreed 3 years ago.
I had planned another closing message, but I feel compelled to say what I'm about to say. Now, I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government. The combining of national governments started with the European Union. That union started with trade agreements, then a common currency, the euro, and now a European Parliament that is feverishly passing laws that override the laws of the member nations. A constitution was drafted but rejected by a few of those nations, but never mind. They implemented it anyway. Now it's North America's turn. Building on the North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA section of the Commerce Department is busy drafting laws and regulations for a North American Union, a union of Canada, America, and Mexico. The President has attended secret meetings and signed at least 2 agreements under the Security and Prosperity Partnership Program. Information leaked out about the meetings, and now it is all in the open. No treaty has been signed, so Congress has not become involved. However, money from our Treasury is now being spent for this effort. We will have a new currency, the Amero, and a new constitution modeled on the Soviet Union's constitution. Our rights will not be inalienable, but they will be granted by government, who can also take them away. One sign that this is our future is the plans for the superhighways from southern Mexico through America and into Canada. These plans are not secret any longer. Huge amounts of property will be taken in the name of free trade, peace, and security. You will have a national ID card with a radio frequency chip